Today I have a special guest. My guests are always special though, so I don't know why I say that. I guess I enjoy being redundant. But today I've got a special guest in his own way, I guess you might say. I've got Mr. Brad Davis here with me. My first impressions of Brad, he struck me as someone who enjoys shaving the distinction between real life and play acting to an exquisitely thin line. That's just some first hunches there, Brad. Anyway, how you doing, Brad?
Man, I'm doing great, DJ. How you doing?
I'm doing swell. Thanks for asking, Brad. All right, so why don't you go ahead and get us started? Why don't you go ahead and tell us this how you got started in theater?
I moved to New York when I was 19 and left when I was 26. All I wanted was to do theater. I wanted to be in a Broadway play. My agent promised me if I went to LA, I could come back and do anything I wanted. And he was right. But I got really confused out there and forgot why I went. I was a very sick boy. Drugs, drinking, that kind of thing. I wanted to act probably from about 5. I'm from Tallahassee, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, though I actually didn't get on stage till I was 16.
All right. That's a really young age to start acting. So what made you want to act at age 5?
My mother took me to see Pinocchio, and I knew I could play the puppet better than anybody. And I knew I could play the puppet better than the cartoon. I used to beg my parents to take me to Hollywood. I really did, and they should have. I would have made a lot of money. I did nothing but perform as a kid. Very precocious. I was skinny, shy, kind of awkward, always big with adults, I didn't like playing with the other children. Look at this. This is a book I've got with me. It's called The Synonym Finder. I love this kind of stuff. So if you look up theatrical, then you're going to get a long list of, if you take a look, mostly pejorative synonyms. Affected, mannered, false, campy, over-emotional. What I'm saying is pick 10 of those, and that's what I was as a kid. I learned how to act from a man named Win Handman. I learned how to be characters as opposed to being sparkling and glittering on stage. People who do that, who are good at performing, usually do the same thing every time. And Win taught me how to start with the seed of a thought of a character and let it grow until it fills my whole body. I learned about being other people through my own feelings. And that way I don't have to fake it or make arbitrary choices or feel desperate to be up there, and all of a sudden not know where I am. I'm suddenly just Brad. The thing is, I'm always me. Anyone who says they turn into someone else, they're having some kind of delusion. If you become a chameleon and make people forget you, well, you're still showing another side of you.
Yeah, that's right. It's impossible to escape yourself, basically. No matter how good of an actor you are, you can never shed your own skin. Lee Strasberg used to talk about acting as being the most personal of all the arts, because the actor brings his very life, his body, his mind into the work, basically. So, all right. Well, what would you say is the silliest part of being an actor?
Silliest thing. For me, I think it's how actors who get successful enough to be written about tend to find their validation in what people write about them. Actors allow people they've never seen or met who write about them to affect our lives and egos so incredibly. I mean, they believe their own publicity. My life changed drastically after Midnight Express. A door was opened to a new plateau of existence. It really was. My arena was expanded 100 times. I was given a lot of lessons to learn fast. Why we're here, priorities, egos. It meant that I could no longer play like a little kid at the fishing hole. I had to take responsibility.
And what did that mean?
Well, I had obscurity before. I could be an asshole and nobody cared. And then this movie comes out. All of a sudden, I was no longer just a guy pissing on a building on 8th Avenue between 53rd and 54th Streets. It was now all of a sudden, hey, look, it's Brad Davis, and I think he's drunk. It's sort of like being born again when you've got a hit movie now. Everything you do or say is going to have a big effect on your life, because now everything that you do is under close watch. People are paying attention to you. Now there's some choices you can make here. You can either play the game, or you can say fuck them. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to blow snot on the street, throw chairs across a restaurant. None of it can touch me. Yeah, you can have that attitude if you want, and that's pretty much what I did. I took no responsibility for the result. I protected my work. I've constantly gotten better as an actor. And theaters is where I learned to act. Then I went to Hollywood and I did Sybil, I did Roots, and I was okay. When I saw the rough cut of Midnight Express, when I went to London to do the looping, I was blown away. I wasn't embarrassed by my performance. I didn't hurt the movie, and I was happy for that. I showed potential. I was slightly raw, slightly awkward. Then came the period where I was slightly confused. I did Small Circle of Friends, A Rumor of War, and did Chariots of Fire. And then in the spring of 1980, I started to grow up. I was searching in my personal life for some real answers. Wasn't doing drugs of any kind, no drinking. And when I did Chiefs in 1983, suddenly I was playing men instead of boys. I looked at my performance in Robert Kennedy, and I looked at that man up there and the boy who had been in Midnight Express, and I realized those two, they're so different. Some actors are artists, not many. Some of us want to be artists, and that's enough. It's very rare we're given a chance to make art. The people who hire us aren't very interested in making art. Are there actors you admire or careers that give you inspiration? Oh man, I borrow from everybody. John Hurt gave me some very good advice when we were doing Midnight Express. Because during that film, I was taking investigating your navel to the limit. That method acting attitude that if you don't mumble to yourself for half an hour and hit your head against a wall, you can't possibly do it. I was so into that. And he would ask me, why do you put yourself through all that? And I said, because I want it to be real. How do you do it? I'll never forget what he said. He just looked at me and he said, I pretend. It's that simple. It's like playing cowboys and Indians when you're a kid. Well, when I was studying acting, the word pretend wasn't allowed in the room. I took pretend to mean fake, phony, bullshit. At first I was stunned. And then I thought, if what he's doing is pretend, it's pretending in a way I never thought you could pretend. It's believing. Would you say, Brad, that acting is a sexy experience for you? Might sound like a weird question, but I think you get my gist. I think you know what I mean, right? That's not a weird question at all. I'd say yeah, definitely. It's a sexy experience. I think acting is very much that way. It's funny, nobody ever asked me that before, but definitely. It has nothing to do with taking off my clothes. I mean, it's not that kind of sexy. I mean, it's sexual because acting is so physical. One thing I change with characters is how he moves, what he does with his hands, whether he touches people or not. I'm aware of his sexuality, on what level it's expressed. I'm aware of my body, making it different from Brad's. All right, that's interesting. That is very interesting. All right, well, we're just about out of time. I usually don't have a lot of time here in the studio before somebody comes and breaks in and kicks me out. And then I have to find another studio to take over so I can do my programs. But let me ask you before we get out of here, before we get arrested. I'm a radical kind of guy, Brad. That's just what I am. It's what I do. Let me ask you one more question. The kind of question I like to ask actors and actresses when they come on here.
What do you think about in that moment when the house lights are out and just before you go on stage? What's going through your mind? What's happening with you?
I'm usually thinking, I can't believe I'm going to do this again. What I do to myself is very intense. I don't cheat. I don't know how. It's hard for me to walk through a play, say at a matinee, and only give 3/4. If I did that, nothing would come out. Also, I'm usually thinking, take a deep breath.
Hey, it's been great. I'm glad you've been here. Really appreciate your time. Have a great flight back to wherever you're going. Everybody listening, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next show, wherever that may be. Until then, keep your dreams alive.